then atheism doesn't work.
I think you're right. There is something to that.
You're about to watch this young atheist student step up and challenge Frank Turek. And it only takes a couple of questions by Frank to really expose the flaw in his logic and get the student to admit that he's wrong.
Hello, I'm Nathaniel.
Nathaniel!
No, so you make 3 specific arguments for the existence of God. A creative argument, an argument for design, and an argument for morality. I first off would like to try and take down the argument on morality.
Go ahead.
Because it's not actually an argument for the existence of a God, it's the argument for the fact that we should have an idea of an existence of a God, because otherwise there would be no moral basis from which we could sit on. And I disagree with that because I feel that humans are inherently altruistic and moral.
Okay, all right, stop there for just a second, Nathaniel. What do you mean by altruistic and moral?
We are giving and we care about each other.
Why is that good?
Why is that good? Because it helps our species survive.
Why is it good to survive?
Because then we can propagate and move on as a species and continue to exist.
So why is that a good thing? Who said?
Why is that a good thing?
Yeah.
Because that is what it is.
Well, that's an is, that's not an ought, though. Stalin would say, fine, Nathaniel, I'm going to survive by killing you and taking your stuff. Why is he wrong?
Because Stalin would have the initial urge not to. He would feel that the inherent urge of humans is to be caring for one another. There are situations where humans will not be caring about one another, and those are exceptional. But because humans are inherently altruistic, his first urge would be to take care of the person or try and help them. But if he has some motivation against that, then he would no longer have that urge. And he would decide that he wants to kill them because he has a reason to.
Well, again, I think you're begging the question as to what altruism is. Why is taking care of others a good thing if there is no God? That's your opinion. Is there an external referent, an authoritative, unchanging referent that you're getting that opinion from, which makes it objective, or is it just something you feel?
Humans, so if you take it from the stance that this is something that is consistent throughout humanity, that we care about one another, then we could superpose that as a moral impulse that we have.
Okay, let me agree with you. I think we do have a moral impulse. And that's exactly what C.S. Lewis said in The Abolition of Man, when he looked at all the diverse cultures and he said, they agree on basic morality. Now, how do you explain that basic morality? Well, there's maybe different ways to explain it, but some will say that's because God has written it on our hearts. But the issue isn't how we know it. The issue is, why is altruism, as you put it, or caring for one another, a good thing? Who said?
It's not necessarily who said, it is what is. We are altruistic. There is no need for someone to say that it is a good thing. It is what we are.
But if Hitler or Stalin comes along and says, I don't want to be altruistic, I want to be selfish and take everything for myself, and if I have to kill you to do that, I'm going to do that, why is that objectively wrong?
Because he is not taking care of other people.
Who said it's... Where are you getting this standard this objective standard that you ought to take care of people? Where does that come from if there's no God?
So I'm just going to talk about a little example that I know of and some others. So there's 3 different points I'd like to make. First off, we still exist. If we did not take care of each other as a social species, we would have very, very limited capabilities of still existing. We need to band together. We need to take care of each other. We need to be friendly to one another.
That's presupposing that survival is a good thing. Why is it a good thing? And why us surviving? Why not roaches or antelope or black widow spiders?
Why do you need the concept of good there? We're still surviving and we're being nice, kind to each other. We are being caring for one another.
Forgive me, Nathaniel, but you're stealing the standard of goodness from God's universe to try and make your worldview work. But if there is no objective authoritative moral standard beyond us, then atheism doesn't work.
You know, I think you're right. There is something to that. The idea of good and evil is in a lot of ways a religious concept.
You know, that was very, very humble of him. Did not expect him to just admit that, but it's clear that what he's saying is correct. So this young guy, he's essentially admitting that we do have a standard, a moral standard, and that no one can deny. We all have a sense of right and wrong, of good and bad. Now, even though that might differ slightly, it actually doesn't differ a lot. And C.S. Lewis talks a lot about this in Mere Christianity. But if you think about it, even when people do evil things, they usually have to justify it by something else. It's very rare. Even Hitler, for example, he didn't just get up and kill all of the Jews and say, I just want to kill them because I don't care, I just want to kill them. He justified it by saying that the Jews were the reason that Germany was where it was, and the Jews, the small minority, was dominating the world and causing other people suffering. So in a sense, Hitler was trying to justify his actions by saying it was actually justice. There are two verses I want to highlight. The first verse, Genesis chapter 1:27. God made man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. This is a foundational passage. Once you understand this, so many things in life become so simple. When God created us, yes, we are created. He placed in us he made us in his image, which means that we bear characteristics of God. When it comes to the characteristics of God, you've got two different types. You've got what we call communicable characteristics and incommunicable characteristics. The incommunicable characteristics are the characteristics of God that only God alone can have. Being powerful, being all-powerful and sovereign, being eternal. These are characteristics that God has. He was not created. The communicable characteristics of God are the characteristics that God has that we are also to have. So love, God is loving. We are called to be loving. Justice, God is just. We are called to be just and to desire justice. And it's because of that that we have good and evil written in our hearts. God has made it clear to us that there is good and that there is evil. If you think about it, if we just evolved over time, especially from a common ancestor, but there was no God who created us with this innate desire, good and bad, right and wrong, these things would not evolve. These things would not come into be. These things wouldn't even be there. Why? Because it's all random happenstance by genes and mutation. But that's not, we all know that is not how we are. We all know that is not what's going on. And the reason we all know this is, again, something that the Bible tells us. Even the person who calls himself an atheist, in his heart of hearts, he knows God. Why? Because God is plain to us. Through his creation, it's plain that we know a creator is behind what we see. In the moral sense that we have, it's clear that there is a right and there is a wrong. Even our consciences say this. That's why Romans 1 says that it's actually men who know the truth because it's plain, but they suppress the truth in unrighteousness. It's sin that causes unbelief, not a lack of information. It's sin because the truth of God is clear and plain to us. It's plain as day, my G. So verse 23 tells you that although they knew God, even the atheist knows God in a sense, but they don't honor him as God. They don't know him as Father. And so when we're doing these apologetics, yes, we want to make sure we're giving good arguments and information to show the case for God and the case for Christ. But we ought to be praying that in their heart, they would trust him and stop suppressing the truth that they know.